All right, today we're talking about the groundbreaking ruling against Apple that is going to revolutionize the way that companies like Spotify and Netflix and all of their subscribers are using those services. Today we are turning the tables, and Chad Franzen is here, and he's going to be interviewing me, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show, and you know, if you've listened before, that usually it is me interviewing smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs from all kinds of companies, and you can check out the archives for some of those episodes. But today we're turning things around. I'm going to be interviewed. We're going to be talking about some of the topics affecting our industry, which is B2B podcasting and marketing. And before we get into this interview, this episode is brought to you by our company, Rise25. At Rise25, we help businesses to give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you to run your podcast. We are the easy button for a company to launch and run the podcast. We do three things which are critical. This is the three-legged stool. We do the strategy, we do the external accountability, and we do the full external production and execution. In fact, we invented a platform that helps us to do all of those things. It's being called the Wix or the Squarespace of B2B podcasting. It's a podcast co-pilot. So if you want to learn more about that and learn more about how Rise25 can be the team of magic elves that run in the background to make it look easy for you, your company, to have a podcast and have it produce great relationships and ROI for your business, you can go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com. All right, with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Franzen. Chad.
Hey, thanks so much, John. It's great to be here. Great to talk to you. This is kind of another episode in our series where we focus on a recent book that you have read, a little known tool that you have used, someone in your network who has impacted you, an issue in your industry, and this time we'll be talking about a common mistake that you help your clients overcome. So I'm looking forward to talking to you once again about all of these things. Why don't we start out with a recent book that you have read? What's one that comes to mind for you?
Great. So the one that I chose for this week is another one on the hot topic of AI. It's The AI-Driven Leader by Jeff Woods. Jeff is someone that we have, Jeremy and I have known for a lot of years now. AIleadership.com is his website. And what I like about that book is that it's a bit timeless because it's talking about not the tools that are constantly changing, but it's talking about how leaders in any organization can be leveraging AI as a tool to come up with the new ideas, to strategize, to create plans, things like that, and to really integrate it into their process so that they can be a better leader with their team and produce a lot more in the time that they have. So I really like that one, and it's really good. It's good for CEOs. It's good for executive teams. It's good for really anyone who wants to be a leader, who wants to be more efficient, because so many of us can utilize AI in so many different ways. So AIleadership.com, check it out.
So it encourages the leader to use AI, him or herself, or to encourage the team to use AI?
A bit of both, but definitely, using it themselves. I mean, we all Google things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did for me a couple of months ago. I just stopped Googling things, and I said every time I'm thinking of Googling something, I'm going to go and I'm going to use AI. Sometimes I use two of them and test and see which one comes up with the better result. So I don't know many leaders that are at such a high level that they're not even Googling things themselves, or they don't have their phone near them. That's an extremely rare situation. Generationally, I think anyone, of any age has really got a phone in their pocket all the time. So it's utilizing these things and encouraging your team to utilize them.
So the next category, a little known tool that you use. This is where you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, the ruling against Apple.
Yeah, so this is not really a little known tool, but there was an important ruling that hasn't got a lot of attention. There was this ruling against Apple. So Apple has taken a policy that any app in their app store, in the name of security and creating a consistent policy, there's a number of different rationalizations for it, but they charge 30% of any subscriptions that go through it. And companies like Spotify and Netflix have chafed against that. And so they have not made it kind of difficult. The policy has made it difficult for people to go and buy things through those apps. So, for example, with Spotify, Spotify has tried to grow an ebook, audiobook business as an alternative to Audible. I'm all in favor of that because I love audiobooks, listening to audiobooks. And there also are increasingly, audio products that are kind of a hybrid between a paid podcast and a paid audio book.
Hmm.
But you can't buy them through their app. You have to like navigate over to a website, log in with that website, and then pay, and then go back to the app, and you can listen to it that way. It's really kind of a clunky process. Same thing with Netflix and some of these other companies. And so these companies have said that that's not fair. So this ruling came down that said that Apple couldn't do that anymore. So this is going to be unfolding, and it's going to allow companies like Spotify, which have been growing like crazy, to go and charge their customers, and they're not taking 30% off the top. So it's kind of a real important ruling, and a significant one that I think is going to affect the growth of Spotify and other tools out there.
Okay, very interesting. Um, Tell me, somebody in your network who you feel like has impacted you recently.
So this is a guest that was on my podcast. His name's Jesse Gilmore. Niche in Control is the name of his website and his business. And he's someone who has a lot of experience in the agency space, and he guides and advises marketing agency leaders on how they can grow faster, which I think is something that's really important in today's day and age. And so I would encourage everyone to go check him out, especially if you are an agency leader and you're interested in that topic.
What about an issue in your industry?
Okay, so this is one that has come up a lot. So, what are we going to do as we get to this point where anything we see online, we're not sure if it's authentic or not? Where a tweet, we don't know if it was written by the real person. Even someone's voice, we don't know. Is that really, Martin Luther King Jr. speaking, right? Or is that, a person, talking? Is that real voice, or did someone make it up? Videos, same thing. Is this authentic or not? And so I really believe that in an age of AI where we're going to be skeptical about whether things are real or fake, then we are going to be trusting things that we know are authentic that much more. And those things are going to be so much more important. True authenticity is going to be important. So face-to-face, in-person gatherings, I think, are going to become more important. Interestingly, I think this happened in the music industry in a different context, where in the music industry, because of the way that things were monetized behind the scenes, more revenue was derived from the live music experience. So I think that in the age of AI, we are going to be focusing more on authenticity. And what can't we fake? We can't fake this. Like you and I having this conversation, even though it's over Zoom, we can't fake it. And I don't think we're going to be able to fake that anytime soon. At least I kind of hope that we can't fake that at anytime soon. And who knows, maybe it'll be regulated or something like that. But I believe that that this will make it more important for people to be using authentic tools to build relationships with clients and prospects and referral partners. And for me, that's what doing a podcast is. It's having an authentic human conversation with someone that you respect and admire, and asking questions about them and sharing that with others and telling other people about that. And so I just see that is going to be even more important as all this other noise increasingly becomes stuff that we don't know whether it's real or fake. So I think authenticity in the age of AI will become even more important.
Yeah, absolutely. Although using AI to prep for that conversation, that's probably okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to be using AI more on the periphery of those conversations. So that actual conversation itself, yeah. I mean, so I'll give you an example. I went to an event yesterday where the people who were on stage had not used AI, I believe, to prepare for the interview because their questions were really boring and uninteresting. And just like a cursory background research, if they'd run the person through the AI and come up with those questions, they probably could have come up with better questions. Instead, I'm sitting in the audience. There's a couple hundred people in the audience, and they were asking these really basic, boring questions that had that asked for kind of platitudes. And it was kind of interesting because a couple of times the answer was, well, I can't speak to that, or you're asking, for my opinion of this, and I can't really give an opinion on that, instead of asking for their story. And so I'm a big believer in that. So yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Use AI to accelerate your learning so that you can ask better questions so that when you are meeting face to face with someone, if you're interviewing them like we are right now over a Zoom call, you ask better questions. And increasingly, you can use AI in the back end to share that and to share pieces of it in a way that's really consumable across all the different platforms that exist today.
The final question is kind of a unique question for this episode. What is a common mistake that you've been helping your clients overcome?
Yeah, so this is one that I've been seeing a lot is oftentimes people think when they get started doing a podcast that the podcast itself is going to lead to fame and riches and cause the phone to ring off the hook. That like all of a sudden people are going to be listening to it and they're just going to reach out spontaneously in this busy world, and they're going to reach out to that person and their phones are just going to be ringing like crazy. And what I found over 15 years of doing a podcast is that that's not oftentimes the way that it works. One, I would do the podcast even if no one was listening, whether 5 people are listening or 50 million people are listening. It is valuable for me just to have that conversation. So that's really important. But secondly, it's a tool to get to the relationships that lead to the big results. To use a simple example, I've used the podcast for years to get into conversation. I've had, done like webinar presentations for Tony Robbins, subgroups for his groups. I've done presentations for different large groups. I had one group where a podcast interview led to an online presentation. We had 3,000 people that opted in to receive more information from us in our email newsletter as a result of that. Now, that came because the podcast interview led to the online training that I did, which led to people raising their hand, expressing interest, opting into our email list. So it's one step removed. So a lot of times the podcast leads to that. So there's so many times that I've done an interview of someone. Jason Swank is another person who comes to mind, who's a big referral partner of ours, big advocate. I interviewed him on a podcast. After the interview was over, we had a great conversation about ways in which we can collaborate, and that has led to dozens and dozens of ways that we've collaborated. It wasn't like millions of people listened to that one download, that one podcast episode, and all of a sudden started, calling and our phone was ringing off the hook. That has become, that kind of direct result has become more and more challenging. And as larger companies, media companies like the ESPNs of the world or CBS or all these big companies have discovered the beauty of podcasting, they poured a lot of money, and there's only so much competition at the top ends of those charts. So if you're trying to compete up there, it's more and more difficult. If you're being smart and you're using a bit of jujitsu here, and you're using the podcast to open up relationships and doors that lead to further collaborations, maybe speaking on stage, maybe some kind of joint venture partnership of some sort. I've even seen people that have acquired other people's businesses that came out of a podcast. Those are the kind of like after effects, the secondary collaborations that come after the initial collaboration of the podcast, and not necessarily from millions of downloads.
Do you think that let's say somebody Googles you and they come across your website and they click on your website and they see that this business has a podcast, that kind of makes you look like a big deal?
I think there is some of that for sure. Yeah, I think that one, it's an easy way for people to check you out and engage with you that doesn't take any of your time. So I hear that a lot of the time. I was talking to someone this morning who was talking about a big lead that he had where that person had gone and checked out his podcast and listened to it before he talked to him. So anytime someone has listened to my podcast before hopping on a call with me, I find that they are that much further along. They know more about me. They know more about my background. They know kind of a little bit more about how I think. And there's a more of a trust and more of a comfort level. when people have done that. But I do believe that it does give you some credibility. I mean, now it's like you see people that go into mainstream media, whether it's on the Tonight Show or on CNN or the Today Show or anything like that, and they introduce people, and how they introduce them. It's not the PhD that they got. It's not the book that they wrote. It's the podcast that they have, and it's really crazy to me, like this is the host of the such and such podcast. And that's the thing that they have that gives them credibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is it for this episode, John. One question about the AI driven leader. So let's say your company has really adopted AI. Moving forward, everybody's getting pretty adept at using AI, and now all of a sudden everybody can do their job in an hour instead of 8 hours. How do you think a leader should react to that?
I think to me, the simplest equation is it's like spell check or grammar check. We adopted these tools. We didn't have them, 10, 15 years ago or something. So if we sat down and we wrote a letter, and it took us an hour to write that letter, and then another 10, 15 minutes to edit it, check the spelling, check the grammar, all that kind of stuff. It's not that we don't do that any differently. It's just that it becomes this kind of tool that allows us to get the job done faster. And I think that's what's going to happen going ahead. Yes, there's certainly going to be some, jobs that people are going to need some reskilling, some retraining. That has happened every time there has been a new tool, new technology that come along. But I'm mostly pretty optimistic person. And so, if you look at like the dot-com wave of the late 90s and the 2000s when the internet came along, a lot of people were really fearful at that time that there was going to be a lot of change and a lot of job loss, but it actually unlocked a lot of presentations. Actually, just yesterday, my friend Mike Gaffery, Burst Capital is his company, he's a venture capitalist. He was speaking at this event that I was at yesterday, and the topic was job creation through AI. And he was talking about some of these areas where AI can unlock new jobs and new opportunities that a lot of people aren't thinking about. A lot of the focus right now is fear-based, focus on like job losses. But there's data what's it called? Data centers that are exploding. They're going to have to build lots of these. Electricians. There's a lot of areas where there aren't enough people employed in certain areas as it is. And AI is going to help to unlock some of those opportunities. Maybe it's by, shifting those to people that manage AIs. So one person is going to be able to get a lot of work done. But there will be a lot of job creation. Yes, there will be a lot of job losses, but there will be a lot of job creations also.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's an exciting opportunity in front of us. We just have to be open to that, like we don't want to go back to a period where we had elevator operators. At one point that was considered unsafe to ride in an elevator unless you had an elevator operator. Now you'd never get into an elevator and think that some poor schmuck should be stuck in this thing all day long, going up and down, pressing the buttons or something like that, But yet there were a lot of job losses through that. I also saw an image someone showed recently that was a picture of like New York City. I think it was like in 1903, like a busy street, and it was all horses and buggies, And then it was like 10 years later, and it was all cars. There were no horses left, and it was a little crazy because it was like, where did all the horses go? Where did all the buggy whip manufacturers go? Where did all the people that made the wagons that were pulled behind the horses go? And there were jobs around that. Like someone who's is an artisan who made like these whips that were whipping horses. Like that was their job, their vocation. They probably had to get reskilled into creating new things. Maybe they took those same skills in leather making and turned it to creating seats that went into the vehicles. So it required change, but I think overall, setting aside the issues of climate change that vehicles are still having lasting impacts on us. There were definitely a lot of positives from that. For one, we're not stepping in manure every time we step out of an office building. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, great stuff, John. Very interesting. Thanks so much for having me today, and I'll look forward to the next episode like this.
Thanks so much, Chad.
So long, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.